Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. My Pasho, it is great seeing you again, and welcome to another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. So excited that I get to do this with my best friend. And Pasho, we're in Mumbai.
We're international. We're going worldwide. I'm telling you, this is going to send us viral, I think, whatever that is. We're going.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And so excited. I'll just have Mike say hello to our wonderful guest, Aditi Surana, all the way from Mumbai. It's going to be an incredible show. I'll just let you two say hello to each other real quick.
Hi. How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
And how's everything in Mumbai?
So post-lockdown, it feels as if we have no lockdown or we have no COVID. Everybody is so busy and everything is like back to normal. Surprisingly, but that's how it is.
Oh, I can't wait for that day. Wow, that's amazing. All right.
Wow, that is incredible because I think, what's the population in Mumbai? Is it about 19 million?
Yes, and growing every single day. So for us to be back to normal is not only because we have solved all the problems, but also the necessity of the hour. So many people are dependent on their jobs and we cannot be in lockdown anymore. So it's mainly because of the necessity. So people are taking precautions. Government is like really, really careful about things. But yes, we are almost in the unlockdown space right now.
Wow. Well, that's great. That's great. Yeah, we're ready. Mike's in Los Angeles, where there's been lots of craziness with the COVID. And I'm up north in California. We're both in California. And I'm in between Sacramento, our state capital, and San Francisco. I don't know. Have you ever been to this area, this part of the country?
I've been to LA that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But very touristy, can't count.
So that's where Mike is. So again, let me introduce our amazing guest, and thank you so much for coming on the show. We're very, very excited. I don't know if I'm going to say that after the show because Aditi is many things, and one of them is a graphologist, and I'll let her get into that, but she is going to analyze some of my writing, and so this might be the last show because we might not have any listeners after this, but again, it's Aditi Surana. You can find her at aditisurana.com, surana.com. She is in Mumbai, and she never stops learning. She's a podcast host of Absolutely Right, a high performance coach, a graphologist. She writes an incredible blog, and I read and loved many of your blogs, and you and I are definitely on the same page with kind of what you believe and what you want to share in your blog. And so I really thank you for putting that out, and I highly encourage people to go to her website and read her blogs. She is a speaker. She's an inspirer. You have inspired me just in reading what you do and the work that you do. You're a leader, you're a role model, you're a coach, you're a teacher, you're an entrepreneur, a writer, art enthusiast, and one of the other things that I love, an unshakable optimist, which is what the world needs right now. Almost done, Aditi, and then I'm gonna let you get into it. I can tell you want to say something. She earned her bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Mumbai, certified from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, certified life coach, access consciousness facilitator, and several other facilitator certificates. I just am so excited to get into what those mean to you and why. So I'll just let you introduce yourself and say hello again. Then I have a thought of the day that I'd like to share with you.
So I was about to say namaste on that note. It's always an incredible honor to speak to people about the work, especially because, India as a country, we are spiritually inclined and we speak about so many things, but we do not pay attention to personalities as such. And the work that I do is so closely associated with people and their thoughts and how they shape their life. So I feel it's very, very important that the conversation is done in different ways where people can connect to themselves. I feel that's most essential.
Yeah, Basha, we're getting ready to go deep. This is going to be one great show because that, again, I don't have your expertise, but you probably don't know. I'm a nurse, is what I do, and I've been a nurse
Okay.
for 20
Wow.
years, and 12 of those was working in the trauma ICU at a level 1
Wow.
trauma center. So taking care of people shot, stabbed, run over by a car. I've been surrounded by death for my whole life, and so. Yeah, I'm excited because, again, just in reading what you write, I just love it, and it really, really speaks to me. And so I hope the thought of the day speaks to you because I put a lot of thought in trying to find this one, and
Okay.
just in learning about you and hearing your story. Yeah, this one is a good one. So, and I know you know who it's from, Brene Brown. You're familiar with, yeah, so she likes our,
Favorite.
so owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And that's again by Brene Brown. What are
Wow.
your thoughts on that thought of the day?
Every time the stories that we keep repeating become part of our belief systems. And when I analyze people, all I hear is a different version of their story. So my work actually is, you picked up that thought very carefully as I can tell, and so closely associated with my work because when people talk about what is happening in their life, how they look at the world, what is the trauma or the emotion or the anxiety is coming from, I get to see the truth in their handwriting, which may or may not be the story. People discount how brave they are. People discount how amazing they are in the face of the situation. They just keep believing in the larger idea and they keep fighting it. So when we look at these specific areas of personality, we discover the stories are way different than how you assume it to be. And mostly we keep repeating the script that is written by us with or without any validation, without any understanding into whether we should be really believing in those negative thoughts and the fearful belief systems that we operate from.
Yes, man. Yeah, and I agree. So I do a little bit of work. C4 Leaders is a nonprofit, and we're changing what we do. I won't get into all that, but I have gone around and spoken to lots of group, and one of the things that I like to try and do is help people learn how to tell their story, which is why I'm fascinated with the work that you do, because it's so different than the work that I do. But I have found that people, the story that we're telling ourselves might have been our story 10, 20, 30 years ago, but it's taken such a different form over all these years. And so we've kind of retold it in such a different way that we might not even remember what the original story was. And then we've carried that. And I use this just picture of someone carrying a really heavy anchor. And they've been carrying that for so long that they don't even realize that they're carrying it. But you can spot them. If we were in Los Angeles and the street was filled with people. Oh, there's one carrying an anchor. There's one carrying an anchor. There's one carrying an anchor. And then when you help them learn how to drop that anchor and tell a different story and help them realize that, it wasn't what happened to you. It doesn't define you. It was something that was just part of your life at that time. And so
True.
in hearing the work that you do in analyzing just behavior through writing, everything else, I just want to be quiet and allow you to speak. But I'm fascinated with what you do. So you're going to have to tell me, hey, Jeff, we're close like this already. I can appreciate your beautiful smile. Jeff, be quiet. I want to talk.
So, Jeff, one thing that I must say, about my work. I decided to do this work, especially or probably only because I'm a dyslexic. And I always mention that as a first thing because, many people struggle with dyslexia. And I believe in the US, it is more accepted compared to India or other countries. But being a dyslexic, I could not read on the lines. So when I learned graphology, it allowed me to read between the lines. And I suddenly realized that, oh my God, what if I can have that perspective in each and every person I meet in my life? So I'm very happy that I could create a career out of it, because when I started, I didn't meet any other professional who was a full-time graphologist. So to convince people to talk about it, even to tell people that the subject exists, it required a lot of work to explain one thing over and over again.
Yeah, and I would love for you to get into that. And I did read that you overcame dyslexia, but I would love if you can tell everybody the story about how you got started. Yeah, even to go back, I was reading some articles on you, and I don't want to get too personal, but and you can share what you're comfortable with. But this is Life's Essential Ingredients, and I feel like I got one shot, to be with you for however long we're going to be. And I feel like you're such an incredible person and have overcome so much and doing such great work. But I know early on, you had a lot of admiration for your father, obviously, and you wanted to be a filmmaker. And
Yep.
your father said, hey, well, in order to do that, you need to study people. And then I don't want to tell your story, but go ahead and fill in right from
So,
there.
so I was a curious child, and my father was an art director. And at home over dinner table conversations, we spoke films and we did short division. Unlike other kids who heard stories, we were shown movies and we were asked to find faults in direction and continuity. So we literally learned that. My sister is an actor, so we both were pretty much getting trained to get into that field. Now, as a child, I didn't care for acting as much, but I wanted to become a filmmaker, write stories. And my father once said, why don't you start observing people to find your characters? And that was the beginning. And we kept on discussing characters, and I loved that part of my conversation with my dad. And he was a communist. So we were really encouraged to have independent opinions, and he encouraged when we questioned and questioned the norms. So it was very interesting growing up with a father who allowed us, especially in India. Daughters were not as independent as we are, especially because of the training that we went through. However, being a communist, he did not believe in anything that I do, like graphology and handwriting. So one day, I was in a personality development course. We are sent there to not grooming, but like literally learn how to speak and all of that. So one of the teachers said, how many zeros can you make in a minute? We said, whatever number. All of us had some number, 100, 80. People just wrote that number. She said, okay, I'm going to time you, and now it's your turn to draw those zeros. We said, okay. So we did that. For some reason, I looked at each students. They were strangers, they were not my batchmates, they were like random students from all over the city. I looked at their handwriting and the zeros that they had made, and for some reason I started talking about who they were, how they thought, how organized they were, what kind of relationships they had, and all of us were surprised. Like, I had never studied this, I had no clue what I was doing. It just, I could see patterns, and they just, like, how sometimes as a child you try to draw or paint and suddenly you land up drawing something or painting something that's mesmerizes you more than anyone else. That was my moment. It's just that time I realized I could do something that one nobody else could do, and I didn't know that I could make a career out of it. It's just that it felt light, it felt correct, it felt like a thing that you are born with pretty much. So then I picked it up and I continued studying till a point where I was 18 and a half, and I told my father, who was very close to me, and we had this camaraderie, if I may say, and in so many other areas. I told him that I'm fascinated by this work and I really want to pick this as a career. He freaked out. He just could not believe. Like, the dad in him got activated. The communist in him like said, no, you cannot be doing this. And being an Indian daughter, My father belongs to the southern part of India, and like if you know anything about India, the people there are very strict, the parents are very meticulous. All your IT people mostly come from southern part of India, so you know how meticulous they are. So my father belonged to that part of the world, and he couldn't believe that, one, I am refusing what his opinion on something so significant, and second, I'm choosing something which is so stupid because nobody had ever heard of it. But thanks to him, he taught me how not to give in. He taught me how not to buy things without really being convinced about it. So literally it was the resilience that he drilled into us which allowed me to take the journey ahead without him. So he gave me a choice. And in India we don't do that often. I know in the US people, kids leave very early, like by 18 they're out of their houses and they're on their own. In India, by 25, 26, until you do not get married, especially girls, you're not supposed to leave your home. That's like taboo. That's like unheard of. So, however, when my dad did not agree with my choice, he said, if you don't want to do this, leave my house. And I did. So I still remember it was 11 o'clock in the night, and he said, okay, now. I said, okay. I didn't know where I would go. I called my friend and said, I need to come and figure this out. And she said, okay, please come. Like nobody knew what to do that in that moment. But I jumped in, and I don't think I ever turned back after that day.
Wow, what a story. Listen, I didn't realize I just met you. I'm looking at you. I didn't know you were such a rebel. That's amazing. And I love the fact that what your dad instilled in you, the resiliency, is kind of what he didn't like about you all of a sudden, but he gave you that. And the
Yes,
fact that you
totally.
just, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you. No, but that was the beginning, like when I didn't know what I was getting into. I was just passionate about it. And I said, okay, because I'm passionate, I'll figure this out. When I went out and started telling people about it, they said, oh, nice hobby you have. Nobody wanted to pay. They're like, oh, that's so cute. You're so nice. And that's all I heard for some time. However, I said I knew I wanted to build a career out of it. So we had a Starbucks kind of coffee chain in India called Cafe Coffee Day. So a friend of mine, being a management student, we were doing multiple projects and we were talking to managers all over. A friend of mine said, what if you go and talk to these coffee chains? I'm like, that sounds cool. Approached one of them and they said, oh, no, that's not happening. You cannot be doing this in our coffee shop. Then I went to the other one, which was more entrepreneurial. So they not only gave me the chance to visit all the cafes in the city, they also hired me for the HR assignment immediately. So I got my first assignment just by pitching, by making the cold call and figuring it out. And that was really required, to get the boost needed to move forward.
Yeah. So what was when you had your first client that, and I love that. Let me take a step back because when you watch this, you're going to enjoy this. I love when you said that was my moment of when you were in that personality class and you were writing those zeros and it just made sense to you to tell that story. That I got goosebumps when you were saying that was my moment. But speaking of moments, so when you were in your cafe coffee club and you had your first client and your client had that moment of like, wait a second, this makes so much sense, and it gave you that validation. What did that feel like? And walk us through kind of that essential moment in your life.
So actually, I had analyzed people before that. I knew how to analyze. Like when you study this, you start analyzing your friends and family members. So I was confident about what I was saying. But very interestingly, there was a model who was my first so-called client, and after doing the analysis, she offered to tip me because she was in a cafe and she thought it was so nice. And I was so embarrassed because like I was like, oh my, I don't know how this whole thing works. It was my first moment, and I refused to take any extra money from her because it was literally embarrassing to, one, receive tip for something that I do. I never expected that's going to happen. Never received it after that, by the way. That was the only time I was offered.
Oh man, a whole separate question, but and I know I don't think you're a psychologist, but and maybe this is just me, and I think this is how this show is going to unfold. Why is it so hard? And I'll make it general, but I'm speaking about myself. Why is it so hard for us to just take that and just say thank you? You know, a tip or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally struggle with that, and you know, I just did a little event last weekend for my nonprofit, and someone gave me $200 to
Wow.
go towards having another event. And I was like, no, you know, no. And it's all goes, it doesn't go towards me, it goes towards a nonprofit because it's way bigger than me. But I had a hard time taking it. And then it hit me. It's like, you know what I need if I want to keep doing this. This was the first time, you know, because normally I was nope. And I was like, yeah, I need to take that because this is what I should be doing. And I don't know. Yeah, me, I don't know why I'm really sharing that exactly, but just in listening to your story about feeling funny about taking a tip, yeah, just I don't know. I guess something I wish I would do better at of just being able to take something. Thank you. You know.
But money is an interesting thing, right? Like most of us define our self worth based on our net worth. And we have these clear ideas of what we should and shouldn't be charging, what we should receive and we shouldn't be receiving. So we always stay in that evaluation about what is okay and what is not okay. And that story, that idea, and respect and disrespect that comes along with it, we keep evaluating ourselves on the basis of that, is what I feel.
Yeah, and see that's probably my problem because I give everything away for free. And so I guess I just don't value myself in what I do, even though I'm confident in what I
Mhm.
do and I know the results from the testimonials and everything else. But yeah, for some reason, the money hasn't been something to drive me to take that next step, and I think that's held me back. But now you're my psychologist, and I'm gonna be quiet and we can get rolling because I want to talk about your moment again, but a different moment because I know when you were 25, you changed your name. And
Yes, I did. Yes,
yes,
I did.
walk us through that moment because that's a big one. And I love, especially after getting to see your smile, see how you carry yourself, see the work that you do. I love the name that you selected. It's beautiful.
Thank you. So I was, when I started my work, I started a radio show, and my name prior to this one, which I selected, was given name was Chandra Prabha. So it's a very long name and it's also a very heavy name. So people always thought I'm a 45-year-old woman because it was a radio show. And it kind of helped because if they would have known I'm like this 20-year-old something, they probably wouldn't have approached me. The fact that they thought I'm 45-year-old, they kept on, we kept receiving calls. And so many times people walked into my office and said, "Where is your madam?" And I'm like, "Which ma'am? I am the same person." So they always thought I'm my own assistant. And that was like, very interesting. However, I had some goals that I thought I wanted to achieve. I wanted to become, say, how we have those old stupid ideas of being number one in the field that we choose. So I wanted to do that by working with certain corporates. So I ended up working with IBM. I worked with Tata, which is like a large organization here. I wanted to work with CEOs and CXOs, which I did when I was 24, 25, and I had like a lot of clients in that age group and in that category. Then I also wanted to be on TV and all the ideas. And literally I felt, now when I turn back, I'm like, that's so interesting that the list I had created for myself ran out by 26. I ticked marked everything that I thought I wanted. And then I was waiting one day and I was looking at my own work and I said, what am I growing into? What am I doing after this? And I couldn't find genuine, inspiring moments. Like I felt, how in the first phase of my life, whatever I thought was important was done. And I thought, okay, I really, really need to get to my core before I just continue this journey. Because it was a journey of passion and authenticity and genuinely making difference to other people. And I believe that if you're not feeling that within for yourself, you cannot pretend it for other person. If you're not growing, you can't be talking about growth in general. Like you got to be the genuine inspiration for people to see that, and then probably, energetically, otherwise, beyond your words and beyond your actions, beyond your so-called claims as a coach, they should be able to experience it in your being. And I was not doing that. I was really getting stuck into this model that we had created as a coach. So I paused, and that was an essential moment. I said, okay, I cannot continue this journey. I need to redefine, review, and probably drop things. And spiritual journey, especially Yoga Sutra, that I'm extremely inspired by. I was going through this whole concept of detached involvement. And everywhere you identify yourself with things and identify yourself with titles and labels actually get to you. So for me, changing the name was renouncing the identity that I had built against all odds, because that was the most precious thing for me. The brand that I had built with my name, and the practice and the credibility, everything. But at some point I felt I was growing into this person I couldn't identify. I was becoming the coach, and the person within was kind of getting lost. And that was my honest call more than anything else. I said I probably would continue doing this work. I do not know, but if I don't pause right now, I will become resentful for something that I genuinely enjoy. And I met people after that who are very passionate about what they do. But as they continue growing, they lose the touch with their passion, and then they do not do anything to recreate it. And then they just become like anyone else. So that was my big realization moment.
Yeah, when you talk about that, that's amazing that you can do that. And let me just ask you, for the people listening, for myself, how do you have that self realization to know that you're going in a different path than what you originally set out for? What is a moment there? What is something people can do to find that path, get back on the right road to where they're going?
I'm going to borrow the line by Steve Jobs when he says, if you wake up and for in a row for 3 days, if you feel that you're not excited about what you do, then you got to really question your journey. Probably you're not on the path that you should be on. And that's exactly what I felt. I remember walking into a session and not being excited for it. Now, if I have to tell one thing to both of you is, and all our listeners, is when I look at a handwriting sample till date, after 16 years of doing this work, I blush. And I'm talking about it and I have like the smile because I just feel so excited about it. And I know that in that period, it did not excite me. I did not want to walk into that session. I'm like, what is happening? And all of us have these moments, right? We realize that we are dragging our feet. We are saying no when we want to say yes. We are saying yes when we want to say no. But we just keep pushing that under the carpet and we do not pay attention. So if we are not in tune with our minds and our bodies, suddenly one fine day you have a problem in front of you. One fine day you feel anxious. It never happens one fine day. Your backache, your challenges, your emotional issues, they're building up. It's just that we are mostly busy doing other things. We do not pay attention to those micro signals.
Definitely. And it seems like you have a magic ball, but I think, and technology obviously is not to blame because I think it's an amazing tool. Look, you're in Mumbai, I'm in Vacaville, Mike's in San Pedro, and we're talking and we're having an amazing conversation. And I love this, but I do think it's gotten us distracted. And I think if we're not careful and we don't set up some ways for us, each individual, to manage the influence of technology, then I think we get in that rut because that 78% of employees are disengaged in their work. So you go back to your quote on what Steve Jobs was talking about. That's 4/5 of the workforce. Hey, I'm out. I'm disengaged. And obviously, I think something really needs to change within the world, and hopefully, at least in our country and all the countries, we can take steps towards finding the deep meaning. And I know you went on sabbatical, and I'm guessing when you changed your name, this was all that same time frame. And was that also the time that you took that access consciousness class? I think it was in Italy. Is that true?
Not really.
I read
No.
something on that.
Yes, I did. I did. And but these are like two different timelines. So the break that I took from work or the sabbatical, that was completely exploration. I was really busy, but I explored acting, I explored theater, I explored yoga teacher training, and I really went deeper into every possible other hobby I had or other interest I had than graphology and personality, because I was wondering what else can I do, and what else can I discover about myself. So that was the major journey. That was the same time I got married, and the access consciousness part that you're talking about, the classes in Italy and probably other parts of the world, happened after my divorce. So that was like the other journey I went through. So uh, so that was like more again. So I feel that the work I do, when you talk to other people, it's like live wire conversation. You cannot not observe yourself. You cannot not look at your shortcomings when you're talking about someone else's issue or their own challenge. So it's a two-way process all the time.
For sure. And that's what I love about the work that I do. And Mike is a coach. And I think anytime you're in a position to give feedback, in order to do that well, you really need to have a mirror, and you need to make sure that you're checking yourself and giving some feedback to yourself, and also opening yourself up to that same feedback, because that's the only way you're going to continue to grow and challenge yourself and get better.
I'm going to quote Brene Brown here. There's a beautiful small video made on her idea of empathy. And she says, empathy is not about understanding other people's pain, but when you listen to them, when you talk to them, open your heart and connect to your experience of that pain so that you can understand the other person. And I feel that journey of really becoming that, rediscovering myself after the sabbatical allowed me to do that. Because when you become an entitled person, when you become the coach whatever, and I did that very early on without really going through the grind of life, I felt that made me in a way fixed in the ideas that I was operating from, and it required the churn and questioning. So I think that's what happened in the sabbatical.
Mm. Well, and how long ago was that?
That was I think 10 years ago already.
Wow. So what was it, just a random, what was the last thing that you learned that really just jumped out at you? Like, oh man, I'm so excited to learn more about that.
I think everything, Jeff, like it's like for me, learning constantly is one thing that I do. So if I don't learn something every 2-3 months, I have a problem with that. So I picked up cooking for the first time in my life last year. Not last year, 2019. Unlike other Indian girls, I never entered kitchen. I could afford to do that, lucky me, but I didn't. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that ever. And 2019 was the first time I discovered cooking, and I'm like, oh my god, like, oh, how did I stay away from this beautiful thing? And it's a process and experience and all of that.
Oh man, that's exciting. We I'm trying not to make this show about me at all, but I see
Go ahead.
we have a lot of similarities. I just started making pizza.
Really?
And
Wow.
is it's an easy food to make, but it's not so easy to make, because
No?
I like sourdough, and so you got to feed your starter. There's a lot of different kind of things that you got to juggle with cooking pizza right. And so yeah, you are learning about food, I'm learning about food, and just yeah, it's fun to just listen.
But I did learn sourdough when I was in that cooking spree. I went for this whole day class, and one thing I learned very interesting about cooking and personalities is when your state of mind is all over the place, your food tastes different. And when you are aligned and when you are with yourself and you're in the process, the food just comes alive. And sourdough is like a clear representation to do that. Like So you next time you discover that, observe it and let me know how you feel that.
Yes, yes, man, it's so interesting. So one of the questions that I wrote down is, what does self love mean to you? Yeah, what does self love mean?
So I do not think anybody, I've never met anybody who does not love themselves. Like I don't think that exists. We all love ourselves, and there is like this clear idea. But sometimes when people talk about self love, they sound as if it is against other people, is devoid of other abuse. It's like a constant battle that I have to prove that I love myself by doing certain things. And if I don't push you away to do that, I'm not in this journey of self love. Which, to be very honest, I have come to realize that that's not true. Like the relationships that we are surrounded by, the people, the conversations, I always feel I am shaped as a person by each client that I speak with, every person I come across. So if it is a two-way journey, as I was mentioning, then self-love is about being in connection with myself when I'm with someone else, when I'm talking with someone else. So self love as an idea, and as a marketable idea, if I may say, is created in a way that you walk away from other people, you push the the noise out to connect with yourself. I do not agree with that interpretation. Now, like people meditate, and many people feel that if it is noisy, you cannot meditate. My teacher taught me to meditate and constantly forced me to meditate in a noisy place. He said, okay, go to a railway station, go to an airport, go to the busiest market, sit there and meditate. So it's not connection. The self love idea is not without others, but I feel it's about your connection in spite of others, which is very, very important, I feel.
Hmm. Going deep, Pasho. Going deep, and I love what you say about meditation. Yeah, I try and practice. And different. And one of my great mentors, this young lady, gosh, she's got to be about 75. She looks like she's 16. She's
Wow.
Vietnamese. And every time I get to see her, my heart just fills with love. Cho Yoder is her name. And one of the great things that she taught me was that I've shared a lot with students is called PBS, pause, breathe, and smile. And you just take those in through your nose like you're smelling a rose, out through your mouth like you're blowing out your birthday candles, and then just smile. And she always talks about, if you are in a quiet place, great. If you're in a loud place, great. You have other thoughts coming into your head. Hey, just acknowledge them. Hey, anxiety, I see you. I'm just going to blow you out. Okay, there you go. And then just get back to your breathing. And it's such a great way from a nursing perspective just to manage stress and life and get back and be present, kind of to tie it into your self-love of really being there for another person to deeply connect. And just such of what the world needs now more than any other time is just everybody seeing each other. So
True.
all right, what is next? I want to get into, because Mike is a high school basketball coach. I
Okay.
actually not now because of COVID, but I've been a high school, college, and professional basketball coach.
Okay.
So we see that word performance.
Right.
What? How do you define performance, and what do you do to help people perform?
So my idea of high performance is slightly different. I am not a result oriented high performance coach, but I'm a process oriented high performance coach. So I feel if you're not committed to the process, if you're not what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi says in a flow, or if you have to borrow the concept of ikigai while being in that process, then whatever you do, it is of no use because it will be stress inducing, and not some stresses are good, but negatively stress inducing, and then it is not fun. So the process, going back to the example I was saying, when I walked into the room to do a session many years ago, I felt I'm not present here, I'm not connected to this process, and that was a problem because results were still great. but the process was missing. And for me, high performance is being able to induce that state of mind where you can channelize your intense performance at any given point in time on a clue, as I say, on a cue, as I say. So you really have to step in and just create that and recreate that. And I feel that is mastering a process. And I'm going to quote Yoga Sutra line. There's a line in the second chapter which speaks about prayatna shaithilya. Now, prayatna means effort, and shaithilya means being non existent. But the word prayatna shaithilya is not effortless, it is loosely translated like that. But if you understand it, it is actually about where your efforts become non existent because you master something to that degree. So I feel that is a journey with your process to be a high performer.
And you dropped a whole bunch, Pacho. She tried to sneak in so much stuff without even uh, uh, just kind of hit us over the head. The Aikiga, you're trying to drop in that one, the reason for being, getting into state of flow. She just put on like a master lesson right there. And then, whew,
I saw you. I saw you writing down notes furiously. I saw that.
Thank
I'm
God we are
impressed.
recording this.
I'm waiting for the rig. Yeah, that was a lot of good stuff right there. I can't wait to go back and jot these down. I know I can't write that fast.
oh man. All right. So that's now that you're done with the master clinic on performance, and let me just take one step back. I would say when I first started coaching, and I'm embarrassed to say this, in coaching, I'm talking about competitive sports now. I'm not talking about the coaching that you're talking about. Unfortunately, again, this bothers me, but it's the truth, and I've come a long way. I was more results oriented out of the gate early in my career. And then I realized that's not the way to get anything done, nor be sustainable, nor enjoy what you're doing, nor get into any flow and create relationships and everything else. And so I love your process-oriented approach to performance and helping people, because that's how you sustain it. And then that's how you train, and where they don't need you anymore, because you've coached them up so well, and they have the process for themselves. So just again, just loving everything that you're doing. So that's you've mentioned it, but let's get into your graphology and your graphologist, if I can say that. What exactly is that, and how does that work? And is that always part of what you do? Say Mike and I moved to Mumbai and we wanted to hire you as a performance coach. Is that part of what you're going to offer, is analyzing our writing to help us better perform and just be more self-aware, or what? I'll be quiet. I'm killing this whole interview.
Thanks to technology, you don't have to move to Bombay. You can do it sitting there, no problem at all. We can do online sessions, don't worry. But what graphology is about studying personality by some micro choices that your body makes. Now, in this case, it is handwriting. But your body is constantly making different micro choices. The way we eat, what we prefer in our work style, what kind of micro movements do you do when you speak, when you get angry. So we are already, our body is giving away the information about who we are beyond our control anyways. Somebody, I believe few years ago, thankfully decided to look for a pattern in the handwriting. So they collected samples and they started finding common behaviors and common handwriting strokes and kept creating correlations between them. And that's how graphology got invented. And the concept is called the graph underneath your behavior, underneath your writing strokes, and the correlation there. That's why it's called graphology. And it's not only about handwriting. People study paintings and doodles, and a lot more can be done with a similar kind of understanding. For me, these are subconscious choices made so you can write your letter A or letter T in so many different ways. You chose these 2 or 3 ways to write it, and that talks about your micro choice.
So I just want to make sure I've got this correct. So you can analyze us and tell us some things about us by the way we handwrite.
Yep. That's
Oh
exactly what it is.
wow, that's unbelievably cool, but it's a little scary on my part. Wow. But I mean, what a great tool to actually get to know someone. Because, like myself, I'm not a big talker. I don't really speak a lot about my feelings to people and all that. But if you were to look at my handwriting and see something, then I'd be very more engaged to speak to you about it because you already know.
Mike, that's exactly why I use graphology, because a part of my training is in counseling and rational emotive behavioral therapy. So I realized that when people walked into a session, they narrated an incident. They said, "This happened in my life." Now, my job as a therapist or as a counselor was to hear what they were saying, to understand where they were coming from my limited understanding of them, of their life, their worldview. And that was my inquiry. I'm like, how do I know what you're saying is correct or incorrect? How do I decide what should I give you as a suggestion or even a question? Because I'm going to look at it from a lens which is built by my life experiences, and probably morally, emotionally, socially your choice might not agree with mine, and then I'm limited. Now, graphology, when it came to me, so I was doing the analysis instinctively, but then I eventually got certified to do this as a proper professional. Now, when I started using it professionally, I understood that people can walk in with whatever interpretation or subjective understanding of what happened. I can see through it because I have the handwriting sample. So you may think that, I was so calm in that situation. I look at your handwriting, and I see a short tempered stroke in your writing. So I say, "Oh, you thought you were calm, but your writing shows temper. So no, my friend, you weren't." So I will not say that because that's not kind to like pounce on somebody with some analysis, but I would keep that in my analysis, in my mind while talking to this person. That gap between what the person thinks he is, and all of us have that, right, and who we are, that gap is where the most difficult part of our anxiety, our emotional complexity, like kind of hides under that carpet, I believe.
Yeah.
Wow, you're like a detective. That's amazing.
Yeah, I would like to look at it like that. Sherlock Holmes, in I think one of the movies I was watching, where Robert Downey Jr. talks about using graphology in his study while analyzing his, suspects. So yes, I would love to do that.
Wow. Well, other than solving all these crimes, I know you've put on recently an anti anxiety course,
Yep.
workshop, training with over 1,300 people. Why don't you tell the listeners about that? Because I know anxiety, and again, I told you I'm a nurse, currently working as a nursing professor at a community college. And before that, I was working as the nurse on the college campus. And so, again, about 20,000 students that would go to my community college. And so, unfortunately, would see lots of students struggle with anxiety and know that it is a problem that affects any and all people. And so glad to hear about the workshops and trainings that you're doing to help people deal with anxiety. So tell us about that.
So for me, anxiety is one of the behavioral patterns. So I understand it's becoming a real big problem, and in the world, so many people spoke about it. But for me, again, going back to the personal journey, I was going through something in 2019, and I came across, unlike me, because I have had such a dramatic, adventurous life, but I went through anxiety, a whole phase of it. And that was the first time I paused and I did a lot of work, and I wanted to compile a course on it, an online course. So that's what I was doing my research on. Now I was in March and the lockdown was announced in India, and I was doing some research on how other countries who were already in the lockdown, how they were dealing, what were the challenges, especially according to mental health. And most people were falling down in depression and anxiety. I said, okay, before that happens to India, what can I do? And this was a complete knee jerk reaction, if I may say, because I had done the work on anxiety a year prior to this particular incident, and I had all the work ready in my hand. And so I must be honest here. I felt, what if I die with Corona and COVID? And if that happens, I don't want to die with this work in my hand. So let me just announce it at this point so that at least people will get benefited by it. That was my honest knee jerk reaction. So we announced an initiative, which was a free initiative. Until now, it is already available on the website. So the link is aditisurana.com/right now, WRIT, right now. The process we call journal right now because it involved handwriting, it involved graphotherapy, which I'll explain what it is. So when we began the initiative, we thought we will have, I had 1,500 followers on Instagram because I was not very active on Instagram. It was more of like a personal thing. I never became, that time I was not a social media whatever. So I was like, okay, let me just announce it to the database and to people, at least 100 people. If they begin in 3 days, it would be great. And that's what happened. Like 100 people started on day one, I believe. And then it just kept building momentum. So we did 21-day every day Instagram live conversation up to an hour, and recorded those videos and created a journaling question. So most people journal, right? We are attuned to it. The whole idea of writing your thoughts or narrating your emotions, we are used to it. The challenge, according to me, is most people do journaling as this dear diary approach. They pick up a situation and then they write about it, which is cathartic, which is great. The shift that I created in this method is by asking a solution oriented question where you can review or relook at the behavior that you have. So, because anxiety is all about triggers and reactions, we paused and we said, okay, wait a minute. What if we create a pause between these two things? What other response can you have instead of your habitual practiced behavior? And this is where the journaling worked. To make it even more effective, I use a Zen doodling like stroke called flow of thought. So I asked people to do that handwriting practice where you have to breathe and you have to do the practice. So it's a mind body coordinated graphotherapy. And I'm speaking slower specifically because people are like, what? Grapho what? It's a graphotherapy where you use a handwriting stroke to calm your mind in a particular way. And we combine all three. So a question, as that practice of flow of thoughts, and then you using handwriting to express everything that you have felt about that question. Now when you do all these three things together, your mind goes through a deeper process. So one is you are introspecting, but it is introspecting at a very very deep level, allowing you to really be calmer and look at your anxiety from two steps away from the situation. And my favorite line, I keep telling people, add one spoonful of calmness to your day. So you need not do everything and, be calm immediately, but just if you know how your mind and body feels, if you're calmer and if you're dealing with anxiety, just one spoonful of calmness. If you have at least 5 minutes where you can feel calmer, your mind will know how to get to it. Your body will know how to resume because naturally we know how to be calm and steady.
She's almost just leaving me speechless with all this, and obviously you're a fan of Viktor Frankl with the pause
Yes.
in there. What is it an example of one of the questions that you had for the writing prompt?
So, for example, one of my favorite questions is, so you're being triggered by a situation, for example. All of us know that certain conversations, certain situations just create this uncontrollable reaction in our minds and bodies. Now, anxiety is a physical and mental symptom. So, you cannot only say, oh, I felt this way. Your body goes through that because your body believes that this is for real. Your body believes that the negative outcome is happening right now or will happen for sure. So it is preparing. So your body's mechanism is to protect you. So instead of always shunning that anxiety away, if we ask ourselves that what is this anxiety trying to say by asking a question like, if I choose to look at this trigger, what other response can I have? So it's not doing it in the moment when you're feeling anxious, but while journaling, which is, say, few hours away from that actual moment. So my favorite way of saying it is like, you do not build muscles to pick up weapons at the war field when you're at the war. You actually do it before or after. You build your muscles otherwise. Similarly, anxiety or anti-anxiety mechanisms require muscle building, mental muscle building. So you take out time and you find out, okay, I get triggered when people are authoritative with me. Okay, when they are rude, I feel I need to defend myself. So here in your journaling session, ask yourself, what else I can do? What are the other options? I might not have great ideas right now, but if I start asking questions, your mind will pick up those ways. Your mind will look at different options. It will look at, it's like a Google search. You put a term and you start thinking of 15 things that are possible. But mostly we ask, why is it not working? How is it horrible? It shouldn't happen. So your mind looks for, again, Google search terms, it looks for only those things which are not working, not okay. But when you ask a solution oriented question, specific in this case, what other response is possible here?
Mm.
So, as a game, what other three things can I do? So, that is a journaling habit. And in the moment when you are triggered the next time, a part of you will stand apart and will show you, like, wait a minute, didn't we think of those three options? But we can't do it if we do not practice the muscle of anti anxiety tools.
Man,
That just makes so much sense.
yeah, and
It really does.
it just takes practice. So, do you journal every day? Is that something that you practice? Let's talk. Let me take a step back. What great things do you do for yourself um, daily? Daily to put
Okay.
yourself in that, because you're so deep and you're talking about all these incredible, I don't know, I'll use the word skills. That's not the best one that I would
But
like
it's a,
to.
it's a, it's a better word because it is actually a skill. So I keep telling people that tools are more important than who you are, like not as a person, but who am I as a coach. If I do not practice the tools that I'm talking about, I would also fall down the same rabbit hole, which I was telling you in 2018. I did fall down the same rabbit hole and I was anxious. So I went back and I said, okay, let me take a step back, and which toolbox can I imbibe, put into practice every single day for me to recover. And that's how I had the toolbox ready, which I could share in this particular course. Now, because the response was so overwhelming, we decided to keep the whole initiative free, because we said, the work is way more important than what you think the whole process is like. And it has opened a new door for me to talk to people about anxiety. So coming back to my routine, it might sound a little overwhelming, but because I speak with people for at least 12 hours a day, I
Mhm.
do have a 3 hour long routine to kind of keep my balance. So I don't want to scare everyone.
Well, give us a. We're looking at like the guru right now, so I don't want to. I don't want to have you give away so many secrets,
No, no,
know
no,
you
no.
have,
no.
I know you have so much. You have people waiting on you. I hear people knocking on the door. Let me in. Let me in.
No,
Uh,
no, I'm not. I'm not. No, 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 Jeff. I'm saying that I do not want our listeners to be intimidated. Oh my God, like being out of anxiety is so tough. Actually, it's not, because I'm a professional and I deal with deeper emotions all the time. To keep the balance, I require a little bit more. So people need not do it. And I would love to share. That's not a point. I'm a yoga practitioner, so I do Ashtang yoga. I do transcendental meditation. I follow a different form of pranayam, which is like done for 40 minutes a day, which requires you to do breath coordination at a level that your mind and body is actually in sync. I do journaling and I do doodling because I found that creative expression during the lockdown. So I do like pen artwork once in a while. Pretty much every other day I pick it up. So that helps me rewind. I think these are the things I do regularly. And once a week, you kind of, I observe silence for, once in 15 days, I observe silence for one entire day, which allows you to really reset whatever is happening.
I was, man, Pasha. Were you getting ready to say something or no?
I was getting ready to ask another question, but I'm mesmerized. I forgot what it was, I think. But no, I got it. I got it. And I think this answer is going to be very interesting for us here because you are in Mumbai. So your answer might not be something we're familiar with, but we'll definitely look it up. But if you met someone for the first time and you couldn't say anything, but to tell the other person what you're about, you can only play one song. Do you have a song that kind of embodies what you're about?
Actually, the answer to that question is no. Because, and I'll tell you why, because I feel I have genuinely demanded myself to change every 2 3 years. And I believe that part of, like, the quest and the journey is so important. And I feel when we define ourselves with certain behaviors or certain ideas, not a song but any idea, then we become limited by those ideas. So my favorite statement that I keep saying is personality is a process, and because it's a process, it keeps growing, changing, and altering. So I do not have a song actually. Or
Okay, let's restate the question. What's the last song you played? You're like want to get hyped up. You're like, oh man, I'm feeling a little tired today. I only got 14 hours of speaking and 6 hours of yoga, but now I need to get hyped up and I'm gonna play my song. What's that song that you're gonna put on for now? I know it's gonna change in 6 months or a year, but for
so
today.
right now I'm in a Sufi phase. I'm listening to some Sufi songs, and there's a singer called uh, Abida Parveen. She is amazing. Like if even if you don't understand the words, if you search her and if you just hear, it's very soulful music that she sings.
What's how,
So,
what's her name? You broke up on me a little bit.
okay, her name is Abida Parveen.
Okay. All right. Now, I just got you all hyped up. You're talking about Sufi and everything else. I wanted to get back because I love how you observe silence. What explain more in that? Because I think in and I'll just speak for myself. I won't say our country, but yeah, I don't get to do that, or I don't make the choice to do that enough. And I love that you make a consistent practice out of that. Give us a little bit of insight on that.
So, observing silence is allowing your mind to come to, I feel, to the surface of the water and be at the deepest depth at the same time. So, so many times we get pulled by all the things that we are supposed to do, we should be doing, things we should say, we shouldn't be saying. And even if we are quiet, we are constantly reliving experiences. So we might be quiet verbally, but not necessarily quiet in our minds. But when you give yourself that time to say, okay, for next 1 day, or say 4 hours or 1 hour, even if you choose that, don't choose 15 minutes because that won't help, but like an hour long is a good beginning for anybody. If you decide to just let your mind be steady and whatever thoughts come to your mind, so you don't try to stop them, you don't fight them, but when you know that my attempt is not to act, to move into something, then your body becomes stable, your mind becomes stable, and there is an immense power in observing silence. There are retreats. I learned it for the first time when I was in Rishikesh, which is considered as the capital of yoga in India, in north part of India. And I was attending my yoga teachers training course. So we were asked to observe silence for half a day. And I must say, I enjoyed it. Like I felt, oh my God, I never thought, because I speak so much. So, you start understanding yourself in a certain way. But when I experienced the other way around, so no gadgets, no reading, no making notes, nothing. So most days when you're observing silence, you're in a room, you come out to eat pretty much, you go back and you're again back to staring at the wall, and or like staring outside, but basically being with yourself. Most of us struggle with this thought because we don't know how to be with ourselves. We constantly require fillers, we require people, we require excitement and entertainment to just make sure that our minds are engaged like a child. You know how when you're watching a child, or like when you're taking care of a child, you have to attend to the child all the time, and our minds have turned into that. And thanks to social media, we are encouraged to do that. We are constantly, put into that cycle over and over again. If you break away from the cycle, I feel the mind surfaces back to its capacity. So if it is like being pulled down in the water, now suddenly it is like with the buoyancy it has, it surfaces back. At the same time, you connect with yourself. And these are the very natural processes. Like I do transcendental meditation. So one of the speeches I heard while learning this course, that said the mind knows how to be, naturally knows how to be quiet, how to grow. So minds are not monkey minds. We have trained them to become monkeys, and now we are saying, oh, mind is obviously a monkey mind, so we go to do blah blah blah. But minds are not meant to be that. We know how to be quiet. If you listen to a beautiful piece of music, you connect to it. Your natural inclination is to connect, is to submit yourself in that process. It's not to like, oh, like not connect and go away. Like we know how to absorb beauty. It's just that we have made a big deal out of things which are very simple, and this is where the challenge is.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, where do we even start with that? I was writing so fast. You just started, and you just took us deep right out of the gate. Allow the mind to the surface of the water and the deepest depth at the same time. That's just a statement in itself, and not to mix in and get us lost. But from your blogs, I put in. I'm working with a college basketball team
Mhm.
on doing some C4 stuff with them, and I put these from your blog. I took these.
Okay.
I love you had I love the quote from Vincent van Gogh that you have, but I don't know if these are I gave you credit for them that I'm going to share with that team. So I don't know if they're yours or not, but I took them from your blog. Uh,
Okay.
your experience is determined not by the result, but by the motive behind your actions.
That is mine.
That's deep. That's deep. So I want to explore that a little bit. Uh, Not about what you do, but how you feel when you do it. Another incredible uh, quote from you. Um, and yeah, let's get into that first one. Your experience is determined not by the result, but by the motive behind your act. Because I'll just speak again for the U.S. We're so results driven, and it just goes back to you and your process drivenness to the work that you do. But your experience is determined not by the result, but by the motive behind your actions. And I just know that that's deep. What Go deep on us.
Okay. So let me begin with the simplest example that all of us can relate to. So imagine three of us are sitting in a room or at a coffee shop, and we see a man running. Now, if you look at the man and three of us, we come up with, just in our conversation, what are the three possibilities that he must be running for? So Mike says probably he's running because there is a dog behind him, and the dog is chasing him, so he's running away from the dog. Jeff, you say, oh no, I think there might be a kite in the sky that he wants to catch. So he's like really determined and he wants to catch the kite. And I say, yeah, also other possibility could be that he's preparing for a marathon, not running in a marathon because we can't see other runners, but probably preparing for one. Now, if you take only these three possibilities, now the experience of the runner is completely different. If he's running away from the dog, then he is panting and he's just running a little faster than the dog can chase him. His attention is all on the dog, so that fear that is really, really driving him crazy. If he's running towards the kite, which looks like a better option. But again, there is an external motive. He's running because that desire must be fulfilled. One option is he gets that kite. Great. If he doesn't get it, then what? Then he sits, he pants, he waits for another kite to show up, another desire to show up for him to start running again. Now, both of them are result oriented approaches, a fear based one and a desire based one. The third possibility here is he's running for the preparation towards marathon. So he is probably listening to his favorite track. He is wearing his favorite shoes. He is choosing the park that he wants to run in, and he's enjoying everyday progress in his runs. Now, the same action. Most people look at the other people's running experience and they evaluate on the basis of, oh, how far did you run, what exactly happened. They do not, there's no way to figure out what was your subjective journey, what was your emotional journey. Were you driven by fear, were you driven by the desire, or were you doing because the process was fulfilling enough? And I feel I'm glad that you picked up this quote, because I feel this is a fundamental way I look at every high performance coaching assignment that I pick up. Every single person has different ways in which he comes alive, and that's why I use graphology to see which is your, high point of your personality, of your ikigai. You're literally like, what works for you. So I remember one of my clients was a publisher, and he had this family business, and they were into the business, I think, for 80 years put together. And he has been running that business for 25 years. With online stuff coming up, their physical publications started dying, and it wasn't doing very well. So one day he's like, Aditi, I do not know anything but this business, and I am already 45. I've done only this as a professional person. So what do I do now? So using his handwriting, I understood he had creative bent of mind. He was like, he had more feminine explorations of personality. And I'm not being stereotypical, but he was really inclined to make things prettier, and he did that. Even in his publication business, he kept bringing book covers like that. He constantly interacted with people to bring the beautification of it. Now, in one of our conversations, I saw him passionately talking about his farmhouse and the beautiful plants that he has, especially the flowers. And then he sent me pictures. His entire house was filled with different types of flowers. And I, because of the writing, which was my reference point, I asked him, why don't you start a business in flowers? It's such a beautiful thing. You are very passionate about it. He said, what? No, 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 no. How do you do that? No, he just completely dismissed the idea. And after 7 days, he wrote to me, he said, I'm going to think about it. After 15 days, he really gave it a thought. Within 3 months, he started a company, he started the whole thing. And today, in spite of the lockdown, he has a very, very flourishing business in premium flower supplying. Now, here, connecting the motive, the flowers or the whole journey was something he looked forward to, with or without money. His motive behind that was to enjoy. The mere presence of it made him come alive. And then building a process around it was helpful. So people pick up fear-based thing and say, I must run because I should. I must get into that university because I must. Like all these things that we create, we keep running. Now, we see people burning out themselves by 35, 40 because the motives in the correct action is incorrect. Either it is fear-based or it is desire-based, and you get both way. If you achieve what you want to achieve, you do feel empty. You do feel that moment, oh, I don't know, I don't feel excited, I don't feel. So when I was going for the results, when I was telling you I had this list that I wanted to achieve, and I went all, gun blazing to achieve everything on my list, that day I felt empty when I walked into the session, and I did not enjoy it. And that's the point. So when I took a sabbatical and turned around, I said, okay, I need to do something which would allow me to enjoy and be present and be mindful, and in larger way, if I have to really talk about, be involved in this moment, now whatever it takes. And that became the second journey of my work, which is based on this principle that you picked up.
This is this is like you are, because this is stuff I'm really into.
I'm so happy.
I'm always trying to learn and grow, and I'm just fascinated with it. But I wish we had a bigger platform. But I know you are significantly helping me and my Pasho and the listeners that we have, because this is incredible. I have another one, but I think this I don't know if this is part of the Kinmoji's quote or not, because I have his name. This might be one of yours. When you doubt your power, you give power to your doubt. Is that
Not mine.
okay?
Not mine. Not mine.
That's from one of your blogs, though, and yeah, I love that one too. It kind of speaks to the same stuff you've been talking to, and not to simplify it, but it does seem like if you can take some of these practices that you've been giving Mike and I this master class on, that you can take small steps towards mastering this thing called life, and trying to figure it out, and hopefully, be happy at the end of it. And so I guess that's a weird question that I would love to ask you is what does happiness mean to you, and when are you in that space, in the most fulfilling way?
So, going back to what I just said, it's about involvement. If you can be involved with where you are at right now, and no matter what is happening before this or after this, if you can just stay in this process, and for example, I'm talking to you, if I can be fully present to you, or if I am making my bread, and if I can be completely involved in the process, and that high intensity of involvement is what flow is all about, where you are really at the edge of your involvement, and you're so consumed in that idea. Not consumed might not be the right word, you won't do justice to it, but you're so taken by the process that you fully find yourself, you find your tune, how you are, who you are. And I think that's the most beautiful part of happiness. I feel that what makes us happy, we just don't realize. If you have a child around you and just looking at the child, or a pet or a kitten, why do we watch those cat videos unendingly? Because just being involved in their random actions give us a connection, and that involvement can be created with anything. If you pick up, and if I may say, literally anything. If you pick up walking, you can be involved there. If you pick up cutting vegetables, if you pick up like doing the podcast, from the smallest of the things to the biggest of the things, if you are involved, they become meaningful to you. The relationships are so important to us because we are involved, at least initially. And that's what makes it so important, because we give ourselves. If we are the most precious thing that you and I have here is the life that we have. Being involved in the moment is giving that life to that activity. And this is how they come alive. This is how things and art comes alive. So if we can do that, what else do we want, technically speaking?
Hmm. All right, I feel like we got to be mindful of your time, because I could go all night. I mean,
I want to say one thing just to complete that point. I have this simple belief, and that this has been my inquiry from a very long time. I feel life cannot be that difficult. Like, I genuinely believe life must be simple. So what work you both are doing is to pick up the essential part of it, but fundamentally life is a simple journey. We make it complicated. We bring in all the baggage. Now, every time when people operate from this idea that life cannot be that tough, it can be simpler than whatever I can see, then we start simplifying things. So it's the approach, it's not the technique always, it's not the method, it's not that long routine that I mentioned, but it's the approach to look at things. So when one of my teachers in more Indian work that I study, Sanskrit work that I study, that teacher spoke about that if you know something is working for you, something is making you feel better, making your life better, you would never quit that. You don't have to put reminders. You don't have to tell yourself, I must do it. That should be my routine. You don't have to do any of that. If something you know is working for you, is helping you grow, you wouldn't feel like quitting. So the most simple thought is life is simple. You will follow the natural curve where you will feel like going if you understand that growth is where I want to operate from.
and that's a loaded statement, though, in itself, of growth is where you want to operate from. Hopefully we can help people get to that space, because I think that's where it gets tricky, of where we feel like we've already arrived, and I don't need to grow anymore. and so hopefully that's not the case, and people realize, hey, I'm hoping to continue to grow till my time comes where the big fella needs me upstairs and say, hey, thanks for doing good work. And speaking of that, legacy. There's a great quote by John Alston that I love. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind.
So beautiful. Well
Yes.
said.
What is what does that mean to you, and what legacy would you like to leave behind?
I think I did already. I gave away the course I wanted to do and the anti-anxiety work. That was the legacy I thought I wanted to do in the month of March. Having said that, I feel the simple way of looking at yourself and every day using you, your body and your mind as an instrument to lead life is what I feel I would love to talk to as many people as possible. And the S stroke, the flow of thought handwriting stroke that I was talking about, which for me is a discovery. For me, I feel like that one stroke has helped people deal with the insomnia. I received an email by this 65-year-old woman. She said, I did that practice of flow of thoughts and then anti anxiety thing for 21 days, and I went off my sleeping pills, the medication that she was on. And I couldn't believe, like, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, because generally I work with people with multiple graphotherapies and multiple, I'm available as a coach, I'm working with them. Here I was not available. I did those videos and she merely practiced, and when that was a surprise to me. People went off their anxiety issues, they really dealt with it on their own, because when and I saw the power in that zen movement like stroke. I really want to reach out to as many people around the world as I can to teach them that one stroke, if I may, that one legacy I can leave. I want people to have anti anxiety methods made so simple, so mundane that you don't have to really break your life because of anxiety.
Wow. And I don't know if you're going to believe me. Hopefully you will. But yeah, I was in the sauna today
Mhm.
and had a bad headache. And I actually did your flow of thought because I told you I was
You
looking.
did.
Yes,
Okay.
I was going through getting prepared for today, and I just sat there just on one sheet and did that. And then I found myself in the sauna, and I wasn't going to go in because I was having a headache. And I got in there and did kind of what I normally do. And then I sat down, and I wasn't even really aware all the way that I was kind
Mhm.
of doing it. And I just started tracing it in the air, and
Oh, nice.
I started breathing, and my headache significantly went down, and that is the honest truth.
Oh
Uh,
my God, that's amazing. Like, you already made my day. This is like the experience that I really, really like, want to experience, like hear about and know more about. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever because I know you can have the mirror effect, the mirror neurons, and there's so much to writing and not texting and typing and everything, but. Yeah, it's interesting to me to be tracing, and I'm doing it now. You can't see my hand, but I'm tracing your S, and yeah, I'd be curious to see if there's any, and not that any research about the benefits of just kind of tracing stuff in the air, or do you have to have it, on paper? But it
So if
was,
you do it on paper, it just involves more function of your body. So specifically, when you use hand, the kind of neurons that get fired are very closely associated with certain parts of your motor skills and your cognitive behavior. So all of that gets activated and involved in the process. So when you're doing that, the actual physical holding the pen and writing or doing that particular stroke has a scientific, or I would say, I would not use word scientific immediately because I would love to do the research to prove and submit my papers and publish the work eventually, and I'm still in the process of doing that. But the whole idea is when we use a stroke in a zen movement manner or repeat a stroke, you can induce certain states in your mind and in your body through that practice. And I have seen that happening over and over again. So I must say this: if you are in a creative process, and if you're having a writing block, just go to that S stroke and practice it. If you want to deal with an important meeting and your mind is all over the place, take a moment, 2 minutes, do the stroke. So if you keep inducing that stroke over and over again, your mind will know that every time I do this stroke, this happens. But even if you don't believe it, and if you just do it, just to question whatever this thing is, and if you're apprehensive, just do it in spite of your apprehension and see if it works for you. So that is the power. I discovered it for the first time back in the day when my mother was diagnosed with diabetes type 2, which is stress induced. And I was very young and I was experimenting with graphotherapy, and I said, what if we use it? And she said, okay. And uh, she's a diligent student. If I tell her something, or anybody for that matter, if she picks it up, she's very diligent with the process. So for 8 months in a row, she kept practicing this stroke and one more thing non-stop. She didn't take any breaks and she was like at it. After 8 months, her doctor was surprised to see her sugar levels being normal. Her medications reduced. In that 1 year, it stopped completely, never to come back again. And I couldn't believe. So it's almost 12 years now. And I couldn't believe that it was my first case study. And I said, okay, there's something to it, which I'm not aware of, and I'm going to figure it out. So I kept experimenting with newer people as I met, and I kept giving that stroke for them to practice. As that kept happening, people kept coming back with these case studies, and it has been a journey since then.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm a believer in, not to take away from what you're saying, but it is going to speak to it as well. I can't really say I do it anymore right now, but my wife taught me how to crochet. You know what crochet? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So sometimes in the hospital, I was with some of my students, and there was a patient that had sickle cell disease.
Okay.
So they have significant pain, and she wasn't at a point where she could take any more medication at that time. And so we did some, mindfulness stuff to try and help, and said, there's got to be something more we could do. And so the next day we were back, and I brought the crochet,
Oh, nice.
taught the patient how to crochet. And not that it's the same S, but just in me kind of sitting in the sauna today and then listening to you and then hearing, there's definitely a connection behind that, because there's a kind of similar, motion and about getting your mind into a certain space to be receptive to change and growth. And Aditi, am I saying your name the right way?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, it's so pretty, and you have such a beautiful smile. I really can't thank you enough for coming on to the show, and you have really changed my life. And I know there's got to be some way that I can stay in touch with you. I know my Pasho wants to say something. He's been giving me, this is our little sign. Come on. And he's been over there. I don't know if you've been able to watch it. I've been talking so much and listening to you and writing so much stuff down. He's been going on and off with his glass. Like, come on, I want to say something. So Pasho, I'm going to be quiet for a second.
Yeah, that is like my third pair. I've broken a couple because I think he's blind, even though he has glasses on. I'm not sure. If I could throw something at him and he could see it, I would do it. But no, I just wanted to thank you. That was unbelievable. I was just sitting here soaking it all up. And I just want to give you opportunity. If someone wanted to reach out to you and find you and become one of your clients, can you once again tell them where they can find you, where you can be reached at?
So I'm on Instagram. The handle is Aditi Surana, Surana, and the website is aditisurana.com.
Outstanding. Yeah, I think of is it millions of listeners now we have, my Pasho?
So we're pretty much viral. But
We're viral. We're viral. Hopefully, a lot of them will reach out to you because this was some fascinating, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor, and it's a beautiful conversation. So many times you meet people randomly, strangers, but they're not strangers because there's so much in common. I definitely felt that. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's Mike and I's goal for our guests that come on. You know, we want them to share their life's essential ingredients so the listeners can take some of that essence of who they are and incorporate it into their life should they choose. But we also, our goal, selfishly for us, is to have our guests feel like the king or queen and like it was such a great use of their time. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to give you one last. Are you familiar with the Eastern Tibetan term Tashi Delay?
No, but I have read it. I haven't read more about it.
Oh,
Please tell me.
yeah. So it's just it's how they greet each other, and they, Tashi Delay, and how it's translated is I honor the greatness in you, and I honor the place in you where lives your hope, your dreams, your love, and your courage. And I think that's the highest compliment for me that I can give to you, Aditi, for everything that you've done for me tonight. I'm not even tired. I normally go to bed. It's 11:41 our time.
Wow.
My Pasho picked me up on this one. He's like, yeah, we got to do this. DT's going to be incredible. And I knew you were going to be, but I was like, man, I got to get some sleep. I feel like I could stay up for like another 10 hours and just listen to you and have you drop knowledge on me. But thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it.
Pasha Dale to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Life's Essential Ingredients. It was Jeff and a Mike, and more so Aditi, just dropping some serious knowledge. We will put up where you can find her on our site and in all the links to be able to check out all the great work that she is doing. Thank you so much. Please reach out to me, Jeff at C4 Leaders. If there's anything that we can do for you, that's what we're here for. Thank you and take care.